What it is, my Tenno, or should I say, my guardians. Because yes, after almost a 2-year hiatus, I have returned to Destiny 2. Well, I call it a hiatus, but really I had no intention of ever coming back to this game because of how disrespectful it is to Destiny 1 players. But more about that later. If you're interested in finding out my opinion on that, look for that in a different video. No, but today we're talking about my concerns about Beyond Light. Now, this isn't the typical Beyond Light video you see damn near every Destiny content creator making. It's not a hype train that this is going to be the best update ever for Destiny 2, because they say that about every update. Curse of Osiris came out. This is going to be the best update ever for Destiny 2. And when it wasn't, then Forsaken came out. This is going to be the best update for Destiny 2. And then, of course, when it wasn't, it was Shadowkeep came out. This is really going to be the best. Yeah, I'm not doing that BS. Whatever update comes out after Beyond Light, they'll be saying the same thing about it, and the one after that, and the one after that, and so on and so forth. Furthermore, this isn't going to be a video talking about what you need to know, what you gotta have, what you gotta do, what you gotta save, what you gotta keep, blah, 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 for Beyond Light. Again, seems like every Destiny content creator and their dog is making one of those videos. No, it's going to be about real, legitimate concerns regarding Beyond Light. So first things first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Uldren Sov. Yes, Uldren is returning, and if you've watched any of the Beyond Light trailers, you've seen that he does return. But why is that an issue? Because personally, I feel that having Uldren return is the equivalent of negating everything that we did in Forsaken. And that's problematic, because I felt like I avenged Cayde 6's death by taking out Uldren. But now Uldren's back, I feel like everything that I did in Forsaken was a complete and total utter waste of time. None of it mattered, none of it had any impact, none of it had any value. It was a complete and total utter waste of time. That's problematic to say the least. Furthermore, when we talk about Uldren, we're talking about a character that a lot of people in the Destiny community don't care about. But yet this character is going to be forced upon us, at least for a few missions, if not a good majority of the missions. We just don't know yet. Having him return means we're now going to have to deal with him on a near daily basis. Why is that a problem? Because it's the same exact situation that occurred with the character Abby in Naughty Dog's game, The Last of Us 2. Now, I'm not going to talk about that dumpster fire. This isn't a discussion about whether you loved it, you hated it, it was a horrible game, it was a decent game, whatever the case may be. No, because the comparison is relevant. And what I'm talking about is Abby is a character they introduced that kills Joel. Then Naughty Dog further adds insult to injury by forcing the player community to have to actually play as Abby. Sound familiar? Well, it should, because this sounds very similar to what's going to happen with Uldren. The problem is that the same failure of Naughty Dog to recognize this seems, at least from what we can tell, going to be the same failure of Bungie in this case. Because in both of these cases, the communities don't care about the characters. They don't want to know their backstory. They don't want to know their history. They don't want to know their struggles. They don't want to know that Abby plays with dogs. They don't want to know anything about that BS. Bungie, on this hand, is really clinging to the hopes of, well, wait a minute, Uldren doesn't have his memories. He doesn't remember, as if somehow that absolves him of all of his wrongdoing, crimes, and sins, when it doesn't. He's still guilty. Whether he remembers or not, he's still guilty. You can sit here and say, well, he's a completely different person, but he's not. He's still the same person. We know what he's capable of because we've seen it. We know he was a pompous prick, entitled prick in D1 because we've seen it. We know that is who he is. So he may not remember it right now, but when he does, and he will eventually, none of that absolves him of his crimes. It just doesn't. He's still guilty as charged. The point that I'm making is, in the same vein of Abby, all I want is Uldren dead. Period. The end. That's all I want. And if that means I get to shoot Uldren 1,000 times and have his ghost res him, great, bring it on. Because that's all I want to do. The same thing happened with the character Abby when players were forced to play as this character. They spent the better part of an hour or more finding new ways to kill off Abby the entire game. That's all we want to do with Uldren. This is a huge mistake, in my opinion, particularly if Bungie's trying to saddle Aldrin with their poster boy position that Cayde 6 previously had. Now, I wondered about Ikora Rey because during the main campaign, there was a really interesting point when Ikora had a lot of internal struggle as to who she is if she wasn't a Guardian. Who was she if she didn't have the light? What would she do? And it was really interesting, but it abruptly stopped before it even started. Now, I was very, very concerned when it seemed as if Bungie was going to saddle Drifter with that poster boy title, because I don't like the Drifter. Never have liked the Drifter. The Drifter is like that guy or gal we all know that we're not sure if we like them or not, but we just know there's something off about them. That's what the Drifter is. But the Drifter, like those people that we're talking about, seems to, for whatever reason, think that we're besties or something, or we're best friends, or we grew up together. And it's like, no, we didn't. I don't like you. Stay away from me. Furthermore, Drifter is the most cringy character I have ever seen in Destiny 2. The Drifter is one of those people that is so cringy, they don't even realize they're cringy. But they keep saying and doing cringy stuff, and you're just like, oh my gosh, why are you so cringy? But thankfully, it seems like Bungie may have abandoned their hopes to make him the poster boy. Well, who does that leave? Well, we know it's not going to be Zavala or Shaxx or Banshee or any of those characters. And we know it's not going to be Soraya Hawthorne because, yeah, she's another one of those weird kind of characters that I just gives off a weird vibe that I just don't like. So who does that leave, really? Amanda Holiday, Shipwright? Yeah, no, not likely. Leaves Aldrin. But I never have liked Aldrin, and I never will like Aldrin. In fact, in the past 5 years, the only medium that I can think of that actually pulled this off was The Walking Dead. Whether you read the comic books or watched the TV show, there was a character called Negan. And Negan kills off part of Rick's crew. Several characters. The fandom didn't want anything to do with Negan. They didn't want to know his past, didn't want to know his struggles, his life. They didn't want to know anything about that BS. They just wanted Negan dead. The producers of the show culminated Negan for literal years. They weaned this character along with a little bit of information here and there as kind of a side note to the episode. Now, after years of doing this, the fans are ready to accept him. In the case of Naughty Dog, they didn't do that. And it doesn't seem that in the case of Bungie, they're going to do that either. So this is definitely problematic for me because it definitely feels like it negates everything that we've done in Forsaken, which I don't like, obviously. Now, after I returned, almost 2 years later, I come to realize that armor cosmetics are now a very big thing in Destiny 2. Now, armor cosmetics on the surface aren't a bad thing. In fact, there's a really good side to them. They don't take up vault space at all. This means that Bungie can stop hearing us bitch about vault space for how many years now? Since D1. So they don't have to actually, fix the problem. Instead, they just go to armor cosmetics. But there's a dark side to this, and that is that, well, it's now a microtransaction. But what has this got to do with Beyond Light? Well, because they've already announced in one of their TWABs that the armor for a Titan, for example, from Crucible is going to be the same as the armor from Vanguard and is going to be the same as the armor for Gambit. The only thing that's really going to change is the color or the shader. Now, if you're like me, you had to ask the obvious question, well, if it's all the same armor, that means all of the players out there are going to be wearing the same damn armor. The only thing that's going to be different is the shader. So, what do we do for different, unique armor Eververse? It seems as if the Eververse funnel may be coming back. You want new armor? Pay up. You want different armor? Pay up. You want unique armor? Pay up. That's definitely problematic, and I hope I'm wrong. I do. I hope I'm wrong. Because I've heard the rumors of Eververse just going away. Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it, because the amount of money that Bungie makes off Eververse, yeah, I don't think Eververse is going away anytime soon. And if it does, it's just going to be replaced by another storefront full of microtransactions. So even if it did go away, there'll be something to replace it. But this is problematic to say the least. And by the way, full disclosure here, this one I earned, the Star-Crossed Heart armor, I earned when it was actual legitimate armor. Same goes for the Frost Strike, the Lustrous, and the Dragonfly. This one I earned from the Season Pass, and this one was actually listed as for Bright Dust. Of course, naturally, I haven't seen the helmet, gauntlets, boots, or mark actually appear for Bright Dust because, why would they? Complete the whole set now. Yeah, bye, right? So it's problematic to say the least. And then, of course, you have to ask the question, well, shaders, wait a minute. It almost sounds like there's going to be some kind of change coming to shaders, because why wouldn't I just run one of my mini shaders that I already have on that armor anyway? What's the difference? Why does it matter? So yeah, I kind of waiting to see what happens there ultimately, but needless to say, it's problematic, at least, or it seems to be so. Sadly, it seems that gone are the days of actually earning armor. I mean, even with our latest Festival of the Lost, 2020, new armor cosmetics. Could you actually, earn them in the event? No, you couldn't. You had to buy them. Or unless you were extremely lucky and actually get them from a pneumatic Ingram. But if your luck's anything like mine in Destiny 2, it takes me about 6 to 8 pneumatic Ingrams to get anything semi-decent from Eververse. Yeah, I have to level 6 to 8 times to get one decent thing. Otherwise, it's just blue emotes and blue shaders that I've had a million times before. So most pneumatic Ingrams are dog trash anyway, so I don't care about them. So yeah, that's, again, problematic to say the least, obviously. The next problem that I have is enemy types. Now, I've said for many years now that I really, and I've said this since D1, that I really wanted a new type of enemy. I'm tired of always fighting the Fallen and Taken and Hive and Cabal. It's always the same old enemies. Even since D1, I've been asking for a new type of enemy. Years ago, for years and years, I've been asking for a new enemy. And then, of course, we get Rise of Iron expansion in D1. And what happens? They put some red color on the Fallen and say they're Sebified. Yeah, they're just red Fallen. What of them? That's not a new enemy. And then, of course, we get Forsaken. And what happens there? Well, the Forsaken are just like zombified Fallen. Again, another form of Fallen. And now in all of the Beyond Light trailers that I'm seeing more varieties of Fallen. So I don't know what Bungie's fascination with the Fallen is, but they need to keep that crap at home. Do that in the privacy of your own home with the Fallen if you want, because ultimately, I'm sick of the Fallen, man. It's Fallen this, Fallen that, all these different varieties of Fallen, and I'm sick of the regular Fallen. Do you think a new variety of Fallen is somehow going to make them less, more palatable at this point? It doesn't. Furthermore, I bought Beyond Light for the Pyramid enemies. Those are the enemies I want to know about. I don't want to know about more Fallen or more varieties of Fallen, but yet in every trailer it's more Fallen. Why? Why more Fallen? Then let's talk about the elephant in the room as well, sunsetting. Now, I know some of the content creators out there are like, well, it's a good thing because it brings in more weapons without us having to deal with it. This should be a natural progression. Listen, if I like my Waking Vigil hand cannon, and I farm my brains out to get a semi-decent one, and this isn't even a good one, by the way, this is just a semi-decent one, but if I grind my brains out to get a semi-decent one, I should be able to continue that until I make the natural progression to a different, better hand cannon. That's what should happen. It should be a progression. It shouldn't be forced. And now, did they actually sunset in D1? Yes, they did. But they didn't call it sunsetting. In Destiny 1, we called it bullshit. Now, they can call it Tutti Frutti for all I care, but at the end of the day, even in Destiny 2, sunsetting is bullshit. And they make it sound so pleasant, don't they? Sunsetting. They make it sound so pleasant. Sunsetting. We'll take your weapons and armor and wrap them in the finest silks. Give them the finest cheeses and wines. Yeah, it still sucks. It's still bullshit. You can call it whatever you want, because at the end of the day, it's like, how many times have you ran Menagerie Piece to get even this Waking Vigil isn't that good. It's just not, okay? It's not that good, ultimately. But how many times have I ran the Menagerie just to get this one? I've ran the Menagerie an insane amount of times to get this. But because of the cap of 1060, this is trash. Even if I had a God Roll Waking Vigil, it'd still be trash. It should be a natural progression. There should be better weapons that come along that naturally I evolve. I navigate towards, because they're better. I mean, the simple change of, the 150 class of hand cannons going away and all becoming kind of 140s, with the exception of some of the exotics, that would have been a natural evolution and probably would have got me to move into a different category. Just naturally, without it being forced, without it being so disrespectful and harsh. Like, oh, how many hours have you spent grinding that? Go farm some more, bitch. That's what it basically is. At the end of the day, that's what's happening. You can sugarcoat it. You can try to lace it any way you want to. You can put any pretty words or pretty pictures or ribbons or bows on it. But at the end of the day, it sucks. It sucks. It basically equates to all of that time you've invested was completely and totally wasted. And if you were unlucky enough to masterwork something or masterwork a bunch of things, all of those resources gone. Does that mean with sunsetting we get all our resources back? Bungie, if you give everybody back their resources that they've invested to masterwork stuff that has a cap of 1060, then you know what? No problem. No complaint. Give everybody back their resources. Fine. I'd shut up. But you're not going to do that, are you? No. No, they're not. So, yeah, those are some definite problems that I have. On the superficial side of things, something I'd like to talk about briefly. And that is, why is it that Bungie overcharges for every one of their expansions? Don't get me wrong, Bungie's always been very pretentious in their way that they seem to hold their expansions in high regard. They seem to be the ones that think the most highly of their own expansions. I mean, talk about smelling your own odor and thinking it smells like flowers. That's pretty much Bungie in a nutshell with their expansions. I mean, they want, what, $70, $80 for Beyond Light expansion? And it's not even a complete game. It's not even a full game. You don't get all the other expansions that came before it. That's just for Beyond Light. That's it. Gee, do I buy just the DLC, or do I get a completely new game in Cyberpunk 2077? Yeah, I'll take 2077, thank you very much. Do I buy a DLC or the Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster? Yeah, I'll take the Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster, thanks. Oh, let's see. Do I buy a DLC, or how about the Fallout 3 New Vegas Remaster? Yeah, I'm going to get that instead, because that's two complete games versus just a DLC at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't know why Bungie's always been so pretentious about their expansions. Look at Shadowkeep, for example, which I'll talk about that more later in the video, about how, when I mentioned earlier in this one, about how disrespectful Destiny 2 is to D1 players. But Shadowkeep ultimately boils down to a little tiny snippet of information about the pyramid enemies, but the majority of it's all about Destiny 1 bosses and Destiny 1 boss locations and Destiny 1 boss mechanics. Yeah, I did all that, in Destiny 1. But they still wanted like $35-$40 for that DLC. $35-$40, it should have been a free DLC in my opinion. But anyway, I digress. Oh, and something else that bugs me about Bungie. That is their fascination, and I think they do it for clout, is what I think they do. But their fascination with getting celebrity voice actors or actresses. I don't know what their deal with that is. For example, they had, what's her name, Marina Baccarin. Forgive me if I butcher her name. Beautiful lady, great actress. If you don't know who she is, she was Deadpool's girlfriend in Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. Despite her problems with infidelity, the fact remains that apparently they just get celebrity actors, voice actors, for the clout, because they have to pay an insane amount of money, I'm sure, to get these voice actors, these celebrities to do it. But it doesn't do anything for us, the actual players. We don't care. Do you think I cared that Deadpool's girlfriend voice acted Sagira? Nope. You could have literally got a random off the street, and if they did a semi-decent job, it would have had equal value to me personally as a player. But for whatever reason, Bungie does it as if it gives them clout or something like, oh, well, we got these celebrities to do the voice acting. Your players don't care. Why don't you stop wasting money on bullcrap like that and lower your DLC cost down to an actual realistic level? Particularly when you're talking about people on console that are forcibly required to have a subscription service, a worthless subscription service that doesn't do them any good. On top of paying for your content, they don't get access to 80 to 90% of it because they're locked out without paying a subscription service. I mean, that's borderline criminal or extortion in my opinion. But anyway, I'll cover that in my other video about how disrespectful this game is to D1 players. I'm not going to go delve into too much of a category, but it's definitely still a question that I have. But those are kind of my thoughts and concerns about Beyond Light and Bungie or Destiny as a whole. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. I try to read every comment and reply to every comment that I possibly can. And until next time, peace out.